Good morning. My name is Ken Kimber. I'm the Director of Small Business Recovery and Resiliency at the American Business Immigration Coalition. ABIC is a bipartisan coalition of over 1,200 CEOs, business owners, and trade associations across 17 states that promotes common sense immigration reform that advances our economy and helps businesses. Small business owners, especially African American, immigrant, rural, and other undeserved and isolated businesses, are the engines of our local economies. In 2020, ABIC created and implemented a small business recovery technical assistance program that provides one-on-one technical assistance for small, underserved, minority-owned businesses and growers for access to critical resources, including but not limited to the Paycheck Protection Program, federal and state small business loans and grants, and it is the Paycheck Protection Program that brings us here today. Because while we firmly believe that PPP helps small businesses stay afloat, there remains over 300,000 small businesses across the country who have been left out and left behind and are facing debt because of the government's broken promises. We have 7 of those business owners here with us today who were told by the Small Business Administration that if you spend the money correctly, the bank will forgive the loan. But even through the owners you see here did exactly what they were told, 2 years later, their loans have not been forgiven, and now many are facing financial ruin as a result. For 2 years, these business owners, desperate for relief and struggling to pay the interest and fees on their loans, have been played as pawns in a game of ping pong. SBA tells them that it's the bank's prerogative to forgive the debt, but it's actually up to SBA to change the policy, known as the good faith error rule. The good faith error rule places an unfair burden on small businesses by saying that small businesses are at fault for any and all errors made on their loans, even if that error was made by their lender and even when they properly spent the money given to them by the SBA to keep their staff working. These businesses are the backbone of our economy. And our economy, with all the strains placed on it by labor shortages, inflation, and COVID, needs SBA to make good on its promises and relieve these businesses from the debt that they were misled into taking. In addition to the small business owners you see here today, we are joined by Rep. Chrissy Houlihan from Pennsylvania's 6th Congressional District, and we would like to thank her for her tireless advocacy for these small businesses. As an entrepreneur, Representative Houlihan knows firsthand the drive and determination it takes for small businesses to succeed. She knows firsthand that often these businesses are their own bookkeepers, marketing professionals, IT consultants, website designers who are driven and determined to make their businesses succeed. And she knows what it takes for the SBA to do right by America's small businesses. And with that, I give you Representative Houlihan.
Thank you, Ken, for that really kind introduction, and thank you for so eloquently laying out the reason that we are all here today. I'll reiterate one point that is really important, which is that we all believe that PPP was instrumental in helping keep our main streets open during the pandemic, but there are broken promises regarding those PPP loans that we do need to address. As Ken mentioned, I'm an entrepreneur myself. I help to scale small businesses in the very same community that I now proudly represent here in Congress, which includes all of Chester County and southern Berks counties as well, just outside of the Philadelphia suburbs. I truly believe that my background enables me to be a more effective legislator, especially as a member of the Small Business Committee. Much of my very short 3.5 years in Congress has rightfully been focused on small businesses. The pandemic created uncertainty for thousands and thousands of small business owners, and PPP was a lifeline to keep their lights on and their employees on payroll. Though PPP helped save thousands of businesses from certain closure, it did not come without its shortcomings. Part of my responsibility as a member of Congress is oversight, and it's in that capacity that we brought the good faith error rule reform forward to SBA's attention. Nearly 2 weeks ago, our office, joined by Small Business Committee Chairwoman Nydia Velasquez, Representative Judy Chu, and 37 others of my colleagues, wrote to the Small Business Administration urging a common sense fix to an issue that far too many small businesses are now facing. The average excess loan amount error that Ken is mentioning is $12,403. It's an unexpected bill that's hurting our smallest of small businesses, just as they're trying to recover from a global pandemic. These are the businesses that use these funds for their intended purposes, for keeping workers on payroll, for keeping our customers safe on our main streets open. We need to fulfill those promises to our small businesses by fixing this poor policy. I'm really honored to be joined today by many of the organizations and small businesses that are on the front lines of this advocacy. In just a moment, you'll hear from Amy, who's a small business owner from just outside of Chicago in Illinois. And I had the opportunity to speak with Amy today during my train ride down this morning. She is very appreciative, I know, of the chance to be here today. She represents and humanizes this issue. She and I talked about her deep frustration and those of, as we've talked about, tens of thousands of others who are being, as she described, a ping pong ball and feeling like there was an assumption made and is an assumption made that somehow she is attempting to pull fraud of some sort, which I think is an atrocity, a real atrocity that we assume that of our small business owners and operators who have done this in very much in good faith in keeping our economy opening and going. So it's my understanding that she and every business owner who are here today have been instrumental in calling attention to this important hardship. I want to thank you, Amy. It's my privilege to hand it over to you today and talk about how your business has been impacted. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Houlihan. Hi, my name is Amy. Over 10 years ago, I started a small business that focused on providing live music and entertainment for weddings and other social events. That all came to a halt in 2020 with the shutdowns. The CARES Act, which established the PPP, appeared to be the answer for my business to stay alive and allowed me to support my team. Following the expenditure guidelines for forgivable expenses, I used the PPP proceeds to pay my team a portion of what they would have earned had events not canceled during the pandemic. The pandemic is not over for small business owners like me because we are unable to get full forgiveness for our PPP loans. It is unfortunate that I have to be here today fighting for the survival of my small business. I am one of over 300,000 small business owners struggling to get the forgiveness that we were promised and assured that we would receive. This is the busiest wedding season in Chicago since 1984, and I should be there. Instead, I'm in DC for the second time in a month with other small business owners trying to get a solution to this problem. The SBA guidelines have changed over 80 times in 2 years, which is not a problem for large corporations who have a lot of attorneys and accountants to navigate the guidelines and all the changes. Many of us survived through the global pandemic using these PPP funds, believing we were doing the right thing. And now we have spent over 20 months trying to get full forgiveness for our PPP loans. Congress created the law. SBA created guidelines based on the law. The banks were supposed to follow the guidelines that the SBA set in order to help these small businesses. We have now become ping pong balls between Congress, the SBA, and our banks, who have the capacity to fix this insurmountable debt for over 300,000 small businesses who employ millions of people. We are voters who deserve to get help from the SBA. This will not go away. This has harmed thousands of people and will continue to do so if it is not fixed. Either Isabel Guzman needs to rescind the good faith error rule, or Congress needs to come together to create a solution so we can breathe again. We have been thrown into a game that we never agreed to be a part of. There are over 300,000 small businesses across the country suffering because the SBA refuses to step up to the plate and provide the proper oversight over banks to fully forgive our PPP loans. Thank you so much, Representative Houlihan. Thank you to ABIC. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Sunny Glotman, and I'm a researcher who studies small business policy at the Center for Responsible Lending. We are a nonpartisan, nonprofit research and policy advocacy organization working to create financial fairness and economic opportunity for all. I'm here today along with half a dozen small business owners, Representative Houlihan, and my coalition partners, the American Business Immigration Coalition and Small Business Majority, to talk with you all about a readily fixable problem that has created unexpected debt for over 300,000 small businesses. At the onset of COVID-19, to keep people employed and to help small businesses survive, the federal government established the Paycheck Protection Program. Our government promised that as long as a small business primarily used their funds to keep employees on the payroll, their PPP loan would be forgiven. Many small businesses relied on that promise, the promise of forgiveness, and continued to pay their workers instead of laying them off, but are now being denied loan forgiveness because of the Small Business Administration's good faith error rule. Under this flawed rule, businesses that made good faith errors in calculating their PPP loan amount are being forced to repay part or all of their loans, despite spending the funds as Congress intended. For the smallest of small businesses, microbusinesses with 10 or fewer employees, the confusing and chaotic rollout of PPP rules made errors inevitable. Keeping up with the dozens of PPP changes, often issued without notice, along with hundreds of pages of complicated guidance and rules, was impossible. These microbusiness owners are the least likely to have the legal and accounting services needed to navigate the Byzantine PPP process. Therefore, it's no surprise that the smallest PPP loans are the least likely to have been fully forgiven. Not fixing this rule will disproportionately harm Black, immigrant, and Latino-owned businesses. Even with limited data on the race of PPP borrowers, it is clear that by making forgiveness more burdensome for microbusinesses, entrepreneurs of color are more likely to be left with PPP debt. More than 95% of all Black-owned businesses and over 90% of all businesses owned by people of color have 10 or fewer employees. Just as SBA and Congress came together in late 2020 and early 2021 to make PPP relief more accessible to microbusinesses and small businesses owned by people of color, today, SBA and Congress can do the right thing and fix this problem by rescinding SBA's good faith error rule and removing unnecessary barriers to loan forgiveness. Small business owners relied on Congress's promise of forgivable funds to keep paying their staff. Now that these businesses have spent those funds as Congress intended, our government must be true to its word and eliminate these unjustifiable debts. Thank you. Next up is Rob Stokes, small business owner.
Hi, my name is Rob Stokes, and my company is Assured Solutions, a computer consulting group out of Dallas, Texas. When COVID happened, half our customer base dried up immediately. We requested a PPP loan, provided the documentation requested, and was funded $23,000. That $23K perfectly covered our 24 weeks of business expenses. We were told that if we spend the PPP money along the 40-60% business guidelines, that the $23K would become a grant. When it came time to ask for forgiveness, we were told that only $1,100 of the $23,000 would be forgiven. Please show me any small company whose expenses are $1,100 for 24 weeks. Our company is now saddled with repaying the $22K and the overage as defined by the Small Business Administration. Our income has not returned to pre-COVID levels. We are covering ourselves with personal loans. We fear that not paying the PPP loan that would have otherwise should have been a grant by now will result in bad credit, thus lose the business completely. I am standing here before you representing a good faith small business. Please help us by pressuring the SBA to remove the barriers to loan forgiveness. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being with us. I am Quentin Reed with the Government Affairs team of Small Business Majority. If you are not sure who we are a nonprofit organization that represents small businesses. We seek to empower entrepreneurs to build an equitable economy. And this is why we believe that entrepreneurs are essential to building an equitable economy and are key to sustaining a healthy community. And therefore, this community deserves all the tools they need to be successful. We support reversing the so-called good faith error rule that has prevented the micro and small businesses we work with from receiving full forgiveness for their loans. Although the SBA-backed loans, such as the Paycheck Protection Program, were instrumental in keeping our workforce employed during the COVID crisis, these programs also created confusion. The rules were ever-changing in the early days of PPP, including what kinds of benefits could be counted towards PPP, or, for example, how partnership income could be counted towards PPP earnings. Small firms appreciated the urgency in which Congress and the SBA got out these loans. However, it seems that in the rush, there were gaps, and these gaps widened, and those who really needed this funding, like sole proprietors and minority-owned small businesses, were left behind. Loan programs like PPP were structurally flawed because it relied on our traditional banking system that favors well-heeled businesses over smaller and more diverse-led businesses. Already, owners of color are 3 times more likely to get denied a loan compared to their white small business owner counterparts, and we saw this play out in the early days of PPP as well. It's important to note that 95% of black-owned businesses are sole proprietors, and sole proprietors were very limited in what they could apply for with these loans as they were introduced. Despite the many barriers that are usually faced by small business owners, Congress did explicitly promise that PPP funds spent properly would not have to be repaid. Unfortunately, the good faith error rule breaks this promise and places an undue burden on smaller firms that don't have the resources to navigate a complex loan process and grow a business. That is why Small Business Majority is proud to join Representative Chrissy Houlihan, other small business organizations, and small business owners themselves as we advocate to rescind the good faith error rule and refrain from unfairly denying forgiveness to America's most vulnerable small businesses. Small businesses relied on PPP to keep their businesses afloat, and their employees hoped for PPP to mitigate any uncertainty of losing their jobs. Those who spent PPP funds for eligibility purposes in good faith should not be saddled with the thoughts of new and unexpected debt. Given the complexities and ambiguities of the program, the rules, and the chaotic rollout, good faith error rule should be decided in favor of the small businesses. We need this community to concentrate on moving forward and maintaining our economic engine. So let's not foster a sense of regression by supporting a rule that reneges on a promise to America's smallest and most diverse businesses. Thank you.
My name is Mabel Delgado. I am the owner of Aurora Environmental Services, a small health and safety consulting services firm in San Francisco, California. I flew here on Sunday morning to accompany my fellow business owners to pre-scheduled meetings with our respective representatives. I believed it was of the utmost importance to help bring to their attention the injustice, unfairness, and disrespect each one of us has been dealing with, not only with our PPP lender, but with the agency established to support and protect America's smallest businesses. I should be running my business, but because for over a year, I, like the business owners behind me, have tried numerous times to communicate with the SBA to find out the true status of our PPP loan forgiveness application, but I have not been successful. After waiting over 90 minutes, time and time again, I get transferred and transferred again, only to be ultimately disconnected. We have all experienced this frustrating practice in the small business world. But in the small business world, time equals money, and quite honestly, we have run out of both. We are extremely disappointed and frustrated by how we are ignored, dismissed, and tossed back and forth like an insignificant ping pong to our lender, our representatives, and the SBA. We believe the SBA was tasked with the ultimate responsibility to ensure all small businesses in America received what was promised, and when we were forced to shut our businesses down. On March 23, 2020, our governor, due to the COVID pandemic, ordered the Bay Area to shelter in place. The San Francisco Bay Area was one of the first regions in California to shut down. The shutdown was supposed to last 2 weeks. In April, we were in essence still in lockdown. With my employees' best interests at heart, I applied for a PPP loan in the amount of $115,000, the correct 2.5 times the monthly payroll amount. I did so because I care about each one of them, and because I trusted the agency tasked with administering the payroll protection program. My application was approved, and thankfully, I received the full $115,000. But 2 weeks later, I received a call from Bank of America's representative who told me, quote, "You qualify for more based on your corporate tax returns. We were given a special formula by the bank. All you have to do is amend your application and we'll submit it to the SBA for approval," the representative told me. I agreed to amend my application, and in less than 36 hours, an additional $263,000 was deposited into my business account. It truly was a blessing in disguise, because we all know the shutdown lasted for more than 6 weeks. But here I am today in Washington, D.C., 2+ years later, because Bank of America and the SBA have shut the door in my face and have left me, a small business owner, with an unforgiven loan in the amount of $406,000. Though every penny was spent on W-2 payroll and business qualifying expenses. Our monthly loan payment is an outrageous $13,000 a month, and it comes with a 2-year term, because the extension they give you of 5 years starts when you receive the funds. So I ask the SBA, who should I lay off first, then second, and third, so I am able to attempt to make such ridiculous, outlandish payments on a loan you were responsible for approving and turning into a grant? I feel betrayed and used by everyone on this hill who turns a blind eye and plays ignorant. We need you to act today. Do the right thing for my business and for the hundreds of thousands of businesses across the country who have been civil oversight and accountability.
Hi, my name is Ember Seaman. I'm the owner of Mad Ethel's Tattoo in Raleigh, North Carolina. I was given a $77,000 loan, which I was requalified more than a year after I received the funds and paid them out, meaning that I have to pay the full amount back with exorbitant fees. As I have taken on all the expenses of a single mom with no help, shock is not a strong enough word to describe the feeling when I was told my repayment plan would be $9,761.26 per month. The sinking feeling, exasperation, desperation, fear of losing my home, business, and children, and the defeat I felt resulted in only a laugh, because there was nothing else I could do. The feeling multiplied when my finance charges jumped from $48 a month to over $1,500 per month. Since COVID and the whole PPP debacle, we have spent the last 2 years without a microwave. Our dishwasher died shortly after. The toilet upstairs needed fixing, so we turned the water off almost 2 years ago. Our stove and oven have started bursting into flames when lit, so we don't light it. We don't have a working HVAC upstairs, so we installed individual AC units in some of the bedrooms, but me and the kids all live downstairs now. My car electronics have been glitching for the past year or two. I'm not even sure how long. All I know is that it's the car that isn't drivable anymore, despite the fact that I haven't even paid it off yet, and so it sits month after month in our driveway lifeless. To call the whole PPP experience stressful is a gross understatement. The chronic fatigue and sometimes dire state of my mind are something I can't even articulate. And although I continue to work steadily on my case, my hours have become less effective over time due to the fatigue. I don't sleep well anymore, and I find myself having more accidents. Our health is affected, our relationships are strained, and our business continues to shoulder the never-ending burden of this program. And with that, I will give you Adam Levine.
My name is Adam Levine. I own and operate Marksid Limited Home Restoration based in Los Angeles. When during lockdown, the building and safety departments were shuttered, the $60,490 funds made it possible for my team to pay their bills and feed their children. In the face of daunting and unprecedented challenges to building, we managed to revitalize a beautiful Spanish house and turn a modest profit. It let us continue working, acquire a next project, and miraculously survive another year. During the last 20 months, my team has looked on helplessly while I've had to do hours upon hours of battle against a giant Bank of America bureaucracy, hire an attorney, and pursue a Kafkaesque SBA so-called appeals process in which I had next to no input. They blame themselves for all I've been through and constantly insist on repaying me the loan amount out of their individual meager salaries. It's unacceptable that the Small Business Administration is openly and enabling and facilitating the devastation of one small business, let alone hundreds of thousands. Any entrepreneur worth his salt will tell you that the single defining property of being a business owner is that you never ever stop fighting to survive and to thrive. So we continue this battle because no one up here is going to give up until the promise made and owed to us by our government is honored.
I'd like to thank you all for attending our press conference, and now we're going to open the floor to questions. If there are no questions, once again, thank you for attending our press conference for our small businesses that desperately need help. Have a good day.